So on this beautiful day, I thought I'd come out and film, just going around the local area and go to a forest for a little walk. It's a lovely spring day. So not far from where I live is the Parry Cowrie Park, and it's a beautiful little spot. It's actually quite deceptive because as you come down here you think we're not far from the town centre of Warkworth, and the US Army used to be quartered here during the war, some of the soldiers, and their huts still remain. Pretty bleak. And the Cowrie is the second largest tree in the world as a species, and this happens to be the Cowrie here in the park. Quite a substantial thing. Not the tallest in New Zealand. That's Tane Mahuta, which is further north. But I'm going to go for a walk in the wood. This is a museum, and this is where the US Army was quartered. And we have to do this to our feet every time we come in. That was loud. Sounds like my knees. Very quickly you get into some lovely dark woods. A blessed release on a hot day. And the reason I'm coming here, and the light will drop, is because it's an opportunity to think through a book that I'm going to talk about. Well, it's not a book, it's an ancient piece of thought. It's called the Ching. Lao Tzu, I think that's correct. And having read it, really, there's a lot of things to talk about. And the reason I chose to come here is because one of the things it talks about is emptiness. The natural way, the way. And how do you do that, and what's the benefit of doing so? New Zealand has a very good organisation called the DOC, the Department of Conservation, who make all these things. They do a really good job. I mean, to build this high above the trees, as you can see, is really beneficial for people to come along and get to see an area they normally wouldn't. So the Tao Te Ching talks a lot of things about emptying the mind, releasing, and being empty. And the one that really struck me was about what do we value? So think of a vase, and a master craftsman will take clay and shape the vase, fire it with some beautiful glazes. A work of art. And we will come along and purchase that for a lot of money. And it's a beautiful thing to have. What's its value? What's its true value? Is it the glaze? Is it the craftsmanship? Is it the name? Or is it the emptiness inside where we put things? It's the same with a house. You can have a massive mansion and you can have a shack, a hovel. What though is its true value? Is it who's made it? Is it the materials? Is it its size? Or is it the emptiness in the rooms? What we walk through, what we inhabit? That really, according to Taoism, the Tao Te Ching, is its true value. And that's what we have to do. We have to empty ourselves. Now that's a challenge. It's a challenge to understand. But the Tao really does, well, certainly the version I'm reading, it does an excellent job to explain it. I couldn't understand its original language. And when you come to a place like this, it's very easy to empty yourself. What a lovely sound that is. What you're seeing here is typical New Zealand native bush. And in some places they've tried to cut back some of the non-indigenous trees. And you get Nico palms, which is that thing there. What a great place to just come and empty your mind. Except on this occasion, I'm not, because I'm talking to camera. The Tao Te Ching has a long history. And it really came into Western thought relatively recently. There would have been people in the 17th, 18th century who knew about it. This is where the path ends. It was a lot longer. In fact, that is where it will continue, but it's shut off now. They had a slip with the recent cyclone a couple of years back. Hopefully you're picking up the bird song. So I'm going to come around just to show my ugly face now. Hold on. So I've got to try and get it so I can get some sunlight on my face. So the Tao Te Ching, very important text so far as Chinese culture goes and history, and there's a lot in there that we can take on, well, anybody could take on, because the themes are universal, and it doesn't matter how old you are or what your faith is or whatever. There's a lot there to talk about. So this is what I'm referring to, the Tao Te Ching, and there it is. What I used to think was called Tao Te Ching. But then again, when I went to California, I was shocked to find that Yosemite is actually Yosemite. Oh well, there you go. Pronunciation for you. This is a fascinating thing to read. Well, I find it fascinating. I suppose I'm predisposed to like the esoteric. But coming from a Western tradition, although I have no faith background, I do believe that there is a God. I don't follow any one religion. I suppose I like to think I'm a bit like Socrates. Not as wise, probably as ugly, but certainly one who annoys people with questioning. And I've got this thirst for knowledge of stuff like this. Probably far more than's good for me. And going through this, certain things do stand out. I mean, it is a religion, Taoism. But what is it? Well, it tries to explain in the first chapter. There's 81 of them. And it says, the Tao that can be described is not the eternal Tao. Okay, here we go. The name that can be spoken is not the eternal name. It's that elusiveness, isn't it? It's like trying to measure fog with calipers. How can you do it? You can't quite grasp it, but you know it's there. It's a bit like, I'm going to go off on a tangent now, and people who are devoted to Taoism was probably starting to, what's he on about now? What's happening? It's like the mind. we know we're physical, but we also know we have the mind. Now, we can see the physical. We can touch it, smell it, taste it, and all those kind of things, the senses. But we know we have a mind, but you can't see it. How do you prove to someone that you got a mind? Well, then you go to the brain and you basically plug up things that can do sine waves. Well, you can do that to a jelly. You get exactly the same sine wave. Is that proof that we have a mind? So it's like, how do you prove something that is not provable? Science doesn't have the tools to prove the non-physical as such. We can hypothesize and so on. Freed from desire, because the Tao is all about releasing yourself, becoming empty, not striving for things. If you want to, what often is called as manifest stuff, don't try and manifest it. Be your authentic self and just let, like water, go with the least resistance. I think that's what Taoism's trying to say. Freed from desire, there you go, you can see the hidden mystery. By having desire, you can only see what is visibly real. So, being grounded in this physical world means that we desire physical stuff because we're 3D things. So, things that we can touch, money that we can grab, cars that we can own. But we can't do that to hope, love, forgiveness, gratitude. Well, they're important. When you're dying on your deathbed, that's what you'll be hoping that you have had all your life. That's what's really important, not another hour at work or whatever. I think I've said that before. So on to chapter 2. And forgive me, I'm just going to plough through this, because I find it interesting. When people see things as beautiful, ugliness is created. When people see things as good, evil is created. So as soon as we set a boundary, we've created the opposite. When we think they're sweet, then they must be sour, and so on. I think what the Tao tries to say through its 81 chapters, don't do that. See things neutrally. And to my mind, and I could be wrong, but it kind of fits in with Socrates and some philosophy. Anyway, I'll carry on. Now this is the English version. And I don't know whether Chinese has gendered nouns or whatever. But here, the writer says, she has without possessing. It's nice to see the feminine there being used. She has without possessing and acts without any expectations. When her work is done, she takes no credit. That is why it will last forever. There was an advert here in New Zealand a couple of years ago now, and it was wonderful. It was about quality of a product that was trying to be sold. But it showed a master craftsman who, I think was like a baker, who was making the best product possible and doing it to the highest standards, even though no one was watching. Even though no one could be bothered to say, oh, well done, that's good. And I think that's what this is saying. We should do things in life to the best of our ability, even though no one recognises it. You shouldn't seek the validation of recognition. You should release it. And because that's what the Tao is saying. Release everything. Couple more. The Tao is like an empty container. It can never be emptied and can never be filled. Infinitely deep, it is the source of all things. It is older than the concept of God. So if there is a great unmoved mover, the first principle, the thing before, the word God is man-made, woman-made, Reg. It's something that we as humans have created. And there's always been the debate ever since it was created, well, what does it mean? And who is it for? And how could we know it? This is saying, I think, that before humankind tried to put out the idea that there was a God. The Tao was there. Perhaps it's saying we sense it, but we have to give it a name. Therefore, by giving it a name, you've created a boundary. You have limited it. The master puts herself last and finds herself in the place of authority. This is powerful if you are working for a boss at work you might not care for. She detaches herself from all things. Therefore, she is united with all things. She gives no thought to self. She is perfectly fulfilled. I said, I think it was the video I did of The Prophet by Khalil Gibran, that I went through the dark night of the soul. Really difficult period in my life. And I think after that, what's in here resonated very differently to as it resonated before that event, because I studied this at university before then. So when it talks about she gives no thought to self, the stripping away of the ego, then she is fulfilled, perfectly fulfilled. That makes sense now. I couldn't explain it. I still don't think I can explain it, because unless you've gone through such a thing, it's hard to put over to other people. So I'll just be waffling. But I wonder if this would be wonderful for managers in training to read, to break away from these Western notions of how to control and manipulate people or the work environment, and just see it from a different perspective. Service leadership rather than just I'm in charge. Only when there is no competition will we all live in peace. So some of these things I find easy to understand. Some are quite difficult. I have to think about it. I have to go for a walk to clear the head and reevaluate it. And it's just simple aphorisms in a way that get you to think. And that's the beauty of this language that's being used, this kind of literature. You really have to think. It is easier to carry an empty cup than one that is filled to the brim. We all know that. We've done that in life. But that should be us. It's easier for us to be carried if we're empty. To walk through life not wanting. You know, in economics, there's a difference between wants and needs. We all need shelter. We all need water. We all need food. You could argue we all need love. But we may want certain things. But then, are they important? And then when I read this, again, number 11, it jogged a memory of when I originally read this, and it resonated with me then. So this is years coming in and out of my life. Great imagery that's brought into the mind here from the language. 30 spokes are joined together in a wheel, but it is the centre whole that allows the wheel to function. We mould clay into a pot, but it is the emptiness inside that makes the vessel useful, which I tried to explain on the walk. And he talks about the house. We work with the substantial, that is the physical, but the emptiness is what we use. Now, I would hazard a guess, I shouldn't, I can only speak for myself. All my life, up until even now, we tend to get blindsided by looking at the physical all the time, but it's not. It's not the packaging, is it? It's what's inside. When you go shopping and you're looking for cereal, all you're looking at is the boxes. And there's ways in which they get you to grab a box off the shelf. But really, it's what's inside that matters. And it's the same with ourselves. It's not our physical appearance. It's not the clothes we wear. It's what's inside us. It's nice to be reminded. And this is, I think, why the Tao Te Ching really is, I wouldn't say it's subversive, but it's a challenge to Western thought, Western thinking. It's in 13. Success is dangerous. Sorry, I'll start again. Success is as dangerous as failure, and we are often our own worst enemy. The reason I have an enemy is because I have self. Sense of self, you're creating yourself different to others. It's that boundary making again, which we should release. If I no longer had a self, I would no longer have an enemy. Love the whole world as if it were yourself. Then you will truly care for all things. Look for it, and it can't be seen. Listen for it, and it can't be heard. Grasp for it, and it can't be caught. These three cannot be further described, so we treat them as the one, the Tao. And it's just a wonderful, I find, refreshing read. It's not going to be for everyone. And of course, our background, our own belief system may form a barrier to accepting what is in here. And obviously, only the person involved can overcome that or live with that or decide this is not for me, I've got my own beliefs. That's fine. Why do we humans go on Why do we humans go on endlessly about little when nature does much in a little time? Yeah, we get hot and bothered in the short time, and we always prattle on about things. Yet nature just quietly gets on with it and produces so much in such a small amount of time every year. So some of this stuff you may struggle to fully grasp, and some of it, I would argue, comes out to you as though that's common sense, surely. Because they are afraid of dying, therefore they cannot live life. I think that's from Conan, isn't it? What is life? To wear fancy clothes and ornaments, to have your fill of food and drink, and to waste all of your money buying possessions is called the crime of excess. Oh, how these things go against the way of the Tao. I would recommend anybody to read the Tao if they can. It's not for everyone's palate. It can often be a bit shocking because it forces us to question our own moral compass, where we stand, what we are trying to achieve in life, what's our reason to exist every day. Some just want to make money. Some just want to have the biggest status. Some want to be seen and heard. According to Tao, that's got to all be released. Try by not trying. Be without being. Be a being, not a doing. So it is challenging. I don't fully understand some of it. I grasp certain things. I've taken on board a lot over the years. And it is ever a challenge. And I think that's the beauty of it. It's not wallpaper. This stuff could have an effect. So, that's my take on the Tao Te Ching. I don't profess to be an expert, but I would be interested to see what you think and whether you've read it or whether it appeals. I can see why in the Western world it's not generally appealing, because it's calling the quality of life to its face, isn't it? But there you go. Tao Te Ching. Thanks for listening.